Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, we're starting out here about 10 minutes early so I can give you some news appetizers. Let me jump over here and get this started for you.
Meet David Mazariegos. He's a career criminal who had 33 prior arrests when police arrested him and charged him with beating a man to death on the New York City subway this week. So Mazariegos was out of jail on a $1,000 bail after a similar assault back in June when he kicked the glass door to a theater open and assaulted the security guard inside by punching him in the face. Just a few months after being released on bail, he allegedly beat a 64-year-old man to death on the subway after the man held the door open for him. Police say Mazariegos beat Nicola Tanzi for 10 minutes and stomped on his head at least 15 times before stealing his wallet and fleeing the scene. Police then arrested Mazariegos a few hours later in Times Square, where he was holding a samurai sword. You cannot make this stuff up. When the cops asked him why he had beaten the man to death, Mazariegos reportedly said, "Because he looked at me." This was a lunatic who had been arrested nearly 36 times, released and allowed to walk around in public, and now an innocent man is dead. Because the Democrats who run these cities do not want to lock up career criminals, believe that incarceration is racist, and they would rather score political points by catering to social justice warriors than protecting their own citizens. Meet David Mazariegos. He's a career criminal who had 33.
Can anyone stay, from your viewpoint, who's here illegally?
If you're in the country illegally, you got a problem. If you're illegally, of course, you got the right to see a judge. The judge will make the decision. But if you cross that border illegally, it's a crime. If you're here illegally, you got a problem, and you're not off the table. I mean, we're doing a smart thing. President Trump said we're going to concentrate on public safety threats and national security threats first, the worst first. That's the right thing to do. Like if I'm an agent and I got an illegal alien that rapes somebody here and an illegal alien doesn't commit any crime by the illegal entry over here, I'm going to get the bad guy first. And that's what we're doing. The stats clearly show nearly 70% every arrest is a public safety threat. The other 30% could be national security threats. Those will find orders. But we are prioritizing, and the data shows it. But that doesn't mean everybody else is off the table, because again, if the message we want to send, oh, you cross the border illegally, it's a crime, don't worry about it. Just don't commit another crime, and you're free to stay. You're here forever. If that's the message we send, you're never going to fix it on a long-term basis. No. If you're in the country legally, you're not off the table. I hope you can leave on your own and come back under a legal program.
You're showing incredible leadership here, maybe second only to the president here in the country at this time. When do you feel like you'll have done a good job? When do you feel like you can say this was a successful mission?
This is a successful mission right now, but I will rest and feel good when I know there's not illegal alien, national security threats, or public safety threats walking our neighborhoods. That's when I'll feel good. I don't have a number. As many as we can get.
Schumer has always only cared about Schumer. And that's what this Schumer shutdown is really about. Chuck Schumer knows that if Socialist Democrat Congresswoman AOC primaries him in staunch blue New York Senate race, Schumer will be beaten bigly by a Bronx bartender. And his ego, it can't handle that. So he's shutting down the government, leaving hundreds of thousands of Americans without a paycheck and maybe even a job, so Schumer can appear to be as radically left as AOC.
And I saw some Republican members of Congress saying, oh, well, if we have this shutdown, it's because of AOC. Well, if that's the case, my office is open and you are free to walk in and negotiate with me directly. Because what I'm not going to do is tolerate 4 million uninsured Americans because Donald Trump decided one day that he wants to just make sure that kids are dying because they don't have access to insurance.
Girl, you are not a senator, but clearly you are aiming to be one, maybe even the president, and you are certainly in the driver's seat here.
Are they all crazy people? I'm wondering, is there any evidence that that's
anybody
organized?
Anybody shoots at a cop has lost his mind.
I believe that to a degree, but I also feel like it's organized. I feel like this
absolutely is organized. You don't think what's happening in Portland is organized? Absolutely. Chicago's organized. Wait, look what happened in LA. When you got 300 people show up with the same masks, the same shields, the same weapons, and that's happening in Portland and New York and Chicago, are they all going to the same mini mart buying all this stuff? No, it's being supplied to them. They're being paid to do this. And that's why I'm glad, you got the Department of Justice is all over this. We're going to find out who's funding this. and we're going to hold them accountable.
But we don't know
because
yet.
this is a plan. It's being worked.
Good. And do you think that is this like a RICO thing? Perhaps how do we go after the people who are trying to coordinate?
I don't want
this
to
fight?
comment on that. That'd be Department of Justice, but I can tell you they are all over this. They will find out who's funding this, and they'll be held accountable.
Are they all crazy people? I'm wondering, is there any evidence that it's
Anybody that
organized?
shoots at a cop is.
How do you expect people to respect your ability to carry out law and order if you don't follow it yourself?
So do you want the state's attorney to charge them?
I'm saying that they should be held accountable.
So he has no idea how state officials can arrest and charge federal law enforcement officials. And that's, of course, because they can't. It's impossible. They don't have jurisdiction over them. I mean, the guy is an absolute moron. Comparing his mentality to a junior higher would be an insult to junior high students. And it only gets worse.
How do you expect people to respect your ability to carry out law and order if you don't follow it yourself?
So do you want the state's attorney to charge them?
I'm saying that they should be held accountable.
So he has no idea how state officials can arrest.
The moderator, by the way, also did a very good job on pressing Spanberger about Jay Jones and whether she's still supporting his run for AG. Here's how that went.
I didn't hear an answer there on the endorsement issue, so I want to just make sure. Will you continue to endorse Jay Jones to be the next Attorney General of Virginia? And were you aware of these text messages before they released? You have 30 seconds.
In fact, it appears that it was those who released the text messages and held them for years. So the public was unaware who had knowledge of these text messages for many years.
What did you do about it?
I learned of these text messages the day that they came out, and I denounced them as soon as I learned of them.
She denounces murder.
And
Earl Sayers,
importantly, at this point, as we move forward, the voters now have this information that was withheld for them.
You're running to be
presumably for
Ms. Earl
political
Sayers, please.
reasons. But the voters now have the information.
Ms. Bamberger, I understand what you're saying about the voters, but for you yourself, do you still continue to endorse Jay Jones? 15 seconds, yes or no?
We are all running our individual races. I believe my opponent has said that about her lieutenant governor.
We just want to clarify, what you're saying is that as of now, you still endorse Jay Jones as Attorney General.
I'm saying as of now, it's up to every voter to make their own individual decision.
You're a coward. You're a disgusting coward. All you have to say is, no, I don't stand by my endorsement. I hadn't seen those texts. I hope he runs his race. It's going to be up to the voters as to whether they want him as their AG. But no, I do not stand by my endorsement now that I've learned the full picture of who this man is. She wouldn't do it.
Okay. There you go, folks. These Democrats, I mean, they're all corrupt and they're all stick together. They won't denounce each other for anything. You will never hear a Democrat say something bad about another Democrat, no matter how bad the situation is. She won't denounce him. It's up to the voters. Unbelievable. They won't say anything bad about another Democrat. Okay, let's jump over here, folks. This is the video you're looking at right now. My episode 1712. We have information from The Real Adogg, Doug in Exile, Dr. Steve Turley, and X22 report. But before we get into that, I do have some shout outs to give to Ann Lay 13 just started following my channel. Jay Bigglebach just started following my channel. PJ Decor just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, Debbie BS reposted my video 1707. WR Felder, commented on my daily news wrap-up from last night. Debbie BS commented on my episode 1709. Debbie BS also commented on my extra 496A and 496B Conservancy, and Debbie BS commented on my extra 496C. So thank you very much, folks, for your comments. I greatly enjoy reading your feedback, and I certainly appreciate your support. So I've got my son Quentin up here with me. He wanted to come up here and join me tonight while I did my live stream. So he's got a bit of a cough if you hear him coughing in the background, and I might have actually talked to him a little bit when my mic was not muted, but he's up here watching TV, and all right. So I think he's got a little bit of hay fever. The real Adogg. Oh no, Trump gets up and storms in his office and just revealed something we've all been waiting for. Alrighty, let's see what the real Adogg has to say about this.
So let's go ahead and start over here about Benny Johnson. So by Eric Dollar, he say, just then, Benny Johnson says the leftist man who wanted to take him out explicitly said why, and now Democrats are nominating a candidate in Virginia who wants to do the same thing. We covered it the other day. So let's go ahead and dive straight into this, and let's see what Benny Johnson said.
The individual who wrote me described why he wanted me dead. I was a white, cis, Christian Trump supporter. They described in great detail how I would be killed in an open field, just like Charlie, how much blood would come out of my head and neck when it was blown off. This individual described orphaning my 4 beautiful children and widowing my wife with great joy. You might want to say another left-wing radical, another extremist. And to that, I would like to direct your attention to the state of Virginia, where Democrats have nominated and are about to vote for the chief law enforcement officer in that state, a man who has done the exact same thing, an individual who's calling for the assassination by bullets of Republicans that he disagrees with. The killing of their children, the slaughtering of, as he says, little fascists. Are my 4 innocent, beautiful children little fascists? Violence has been mainstreamed by the Democrat Party. It is not extremist, it is mainstream.
Man, that is...
And we need a moment of reckoning here. This has to stop. This cycle must end. Is any Democrat courageous enough to disavow violence?
Wow.
No.
And we went over that the other day. Like I said, prayers go out to Benny Johnson. Prayers go out to his family and stuff like that. Like I said, I support Benny a lot. I've been watching Benny for a long, long time, man. He's a great person. His channel is great. He keeps up to date with everything that's going on. And he's right. Stuff like this just has to stop. So here's Pam Bundy pretty much speaking on what Benny Johnson just said. So it's a breaking. AG Pam Bundy announces federal charges against a leftist man who threatened to take out Benny Johnson. So let's check out what Pam Bundy said.
Beautiful, beautiful young family. The author of this letter made it very clear that he hated Benny because of his views, and he wanted Benny dead. This was a coward hiding behind a keyboard who thought he could get away with this. That's why we're standing up here today. You are not going to get away with threatening people in this way. And I'm proud to announce that we have arrested the author of this letter. George Isbell Jr. was taken into custody this morning, and we are charging him federally with mailing threatening communications. It is a crime, and if convicted, he is going to prison. This was incredible teamwork. Benny, beautiful, beautiful.
Wow. So the good thing is they got that guy in custody, because a lot of people think just because they behind a keyboard that they can't get caught. And so thank God that person got caught. When you go to talking about, oh, what's going to happen to Benny, it's the same thing that happened to Charlie. Like, you got to get people like that off the streets. You got to get people like that off the streets, and they right. Stuff like this has to freaking stop. So like I said, once again, prayers go out to Benny Johnson. Prayers go out to his family and stuff like that. And let's move on right here. Because this right here is where, Democrats still crying. Hakeem Jeffrey is still running out on his campaign tour, still trying to blame Republicans, for the shutdown. So look at it. He said, while Hakeem Jeffrey is now losing it upon being challenged for withholding pay from the American troops by his own party keeping the government shut down. But then he'll turn around and say that we trying to help the American people, but now you making the American people suffer by, shutting down the government, all because you couldn't get $1.5 trillion in free health care for illegal aliens. So, I mean, this is insane, but check it out.
We're already seeing paychecks missed, soldiers lining up at food kitchens. Are you concerned that this fight for health care that Democrats are waging here might end up hurting Americans the longer the shutdown drags out?
Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They decided to shut the government down.
Oh, my God.
Republicans in the House have decided to remain on vacation. Republicans canceled votes last week, they canceled votes this week, and now they've canceled votes next week.
Okay, this is in the Senate right now. The House of Representatives has nothing to do with this. It's got to be out of the Senate. It's got to go someplace out of the Senate. Either it's got to be thrown back to the House of Representatives, or it's got to go to the president. The president and the House of Representatives has nothing to do with this. It has to have 60 votes to pass through the Senate. So he can point his finger and blame everybody in the universe. But the real problem, the Democrats in the Senate. Okay, and the Democrats in the House of Representatives were no help at all either. So that needs to be out there, folks. If you hear somebody saying about Trump shutting down the government, he didn't do it. He doesn't have the opportunity to do it. The Senate shut down the government because they didn't pass this continuing resolution so that the government could keep spending money like drunken sailors. The Democrat senators did not allow this to pass through the Senate. So Trump can't have anything to do with it. He hasn't touched the bill. It hasn't gotten to him yet because of the Democrats in Senate. Just to let everybody know, again.
They're not serious about reopening the government.
No, they are serious. They just ain't stupid. They ain't stupid. See, this is what he's doing. He constantly running with that Republicans shut it down, but yet him and Chuck Schumer, the Democrats, shut it down because they can't get what they want. And this is what he's going to do. He's trying to brainwash the American people by saying that Donald Trump and the Republicans shut down the government when we know that ain't true.
Republicans aren't even serious about paying our active duty troops.
But they have voted for temporary government funding legislation.
Republicans have voted for a partisan spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people.
Oh my God. So
the Republicans have voted for keep doing what we're doing. The Democrats are the ones that want to change it. They just had a continuing resolution. I've heard this said by Mike Johnson, 23 pages. And that's like an index card compared to what some of the shit that goes through the government documentation is. But it's a continuing resolution to keep the government open. And the Democrats don't want to do that. They want another $1.5 trillion to buy elections and illegal aliens.
Obviously, we ain't getting nowhere with that because this dollar store Barack Obama is just going to keep on running with what he's running with. Just running around, and every time he get challenged, the first thing he say is, it's Republicans' fault. Donald Trump them shut it down. That's exactly what he's going to keep saying. Like I said before, I'm going to say it again. He ain't nothing but a dollar store, half off Barack Obama.
All righty then. I'm glad he said that. I couldn't agree with him more. All right, this does come from Adogg. This is a video I shared with you. I'm subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and see what else we got from Doug in Exile. Backfire. New indictment reverses Letitia James' war on Trump. Okay, well, that sounds like fun. Let's see what, let me pause this. And let me go ahead and get that screen up for you. So how's everybody doing tonight? Give me your name in the chats. Let me know if you're here. Let me know what you're thinking. How's it going for you? So here we go. Please enjoy.
We're going to open here on Newsmax with Kari Lake letting Letitia James have it in a sweet moment of irony.
For how much time Trump spent sitting in court, how hard they tried to humiliate him. And again, he goes 78 years. He never has any legal trouble. And all of a sudden he has 91 felonies at 79 years old. And you're telling me that's not political? This is necessary. The people that did this needs to happen to them. Otherwise, they'll just do it again. If a lesson isn't learned here, then these people will just get worse and they'll do it again.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't think it's retribution at all. I think it is law and order. It's justice. There was a wrongdoing here. It sounds like it's a solid case. We're going to get more information as the days.
Unlike what they did, they made shit up. They planted evidence, like when they searched Mar-a-Lago. And they made laws up to convict Donald Trump. It was all a fabrication. This, what she did, was not made up. She actually did this mortgage fraud.
Unfold, and I think it's going to be an open and shut case, a real easy one. It's all there in the documents, and nobody forced anybody to sign a document. And so when you fill out these documents, it's really hard to prove otherwise that you are innocent when in fact the evidence is right there in front of you.
I'm going to show you guys the documents. This is a Loctite case, according to the legal scholars, and repeated by Kari Lake in a lovely lime green blouse.
You know, and we think of what happened to President Trump and the fact that he was dragged through all of this nonsense. Meanwhile, New York City devolved into just a crime haven where criminals were running the streets, killing people, maiming people, hurting people, and not being prosecuted. Maybe the good news is that when Tish does go to prison, there's going to be no criminals there because she didn't help lock any of them up. But
she's only going to be in prison with innocent people because she didn't lock up any criminals. Do you guys believe? First is that's an interesting claim by Kari Lake. Will Tish James go to prison? I mean, I hope so. By the standard she judged Trump, Tish James must be judged. Let's get to those documents here. Here's Mike Davis. Big Tish indictment is airtight. This is the actual document here. Let me get my smart guy glasses on. Letitia James versus the United States of America. This is in the Eastern District of Virginia. Will she get her justice here? Grand jury charges that. So a grand jury, independent grand jury, they went to a bunch of people within Virginia, showed them the crimes. They said, yes, this is worthy of an indictment. Letitia James was a resident of Brooklyn, New York, borrower on a Fannie Mae-backed mortgage loan for the properly located in Virginia. The mortgage lending business, they go into the whole, what the actual business's name was, chartered a corporation that purchased and guaranteed mortgages. Looks airtight. She even deducted repair and maintenance expenses. Homeowners don't get that break. So the question is, what? And now here's her tweet. This is an older tweet of hers. When a powerful people cheat to get better loans, it comes at the expense of hardworking people. This is October 9th of 2025. Everyday Americans cannot lie to a bank to get, let me get off the screen here, a mortgage. And if they did, our government would throw the book at them. There simply cannot be different rules for different people. Okay, that's what we're saying about you, Tish. Now here's CNN. Now, all you're going to see from the left is a double standard of rules. This was posted by Andrew Colvett, who now runs Turning Point USA, the day-to-day for Charlie Kirk. He's a longtime Charlie. So this is Turning Point USA posted this. CNN, 3 losers Kinzinger's on there. Look at these doughy losers. That's Tubin on the right there, the guy that got caught pleasuring himself on camera in front of a fellow news person.
According to PolitiFact, the day after she was elected in 2018, Letitia James was asked by a community activist if she was going to sue President Trump, and she replied, quote, "Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the ass. He's going to know my name personally." I mean, that's not a great look for somebody who has just been elected or just been campaigning, who hasn't even looked, I guess, at deeply at any evidence.
Well, that's, we live in a system where attorneys general and district attorneys well, I mean, it's a bizarre case in many respects. First of all, it's incredibly small potatoes. This is a house that was purchased for $137,000 in 2020, a year when the average house in America was sold for $383,000. So any mortgage, any insurance on a house of that value is going to be very small, and in ordinary circumstances wouldn't draw the attention of the Department of Justice. But more importantly, what is so chilling about this case is that ever since Watergate, presidents have imposed on themselves the rule that they do not interfere in criminal prosecutions, much less demand them. But here you have a demanded prosecution, and one that the career people in the Eastern District of Virginia thought was an unworthy case.
This is a level of spaghetti. This is the kind of backflips that a Democrat has to do to say Tish was justified in going after the president, and the Department of Justice, this independent lawyer or judge that they hired, out in Virginia, went after Tish James. Trump can say, I'm arm's distance. I'm not touching this thing. I have no opinion on it. I don't know what you're talking about. Tubin, who pleasured yourself on camera in front of a subordinate. Here's the action. More on the document. Here's Viva Free. Big Tish James has actually been indicted. I didn't vote because I'm Canadian, he says, but if I did, this would have been exactly what I voted for. For what it's worth, she's dead due to rights, barring a corrupt jury. So Tish James, this is a Viva Frey. Even though he's Canadian, I trust his legal theory. He's a very sober-minded, very serious, very wonderful man. And Tish James, remember, said that no one was above the law. That's over here. No one's above the law. Here we go. The loan was originated by OVM Financial under a signed second home rider, which required James, as the sole owner, to occupy and use the property as her secondary residence and prohibited its use as a time-sharing or other shared ownership arrangement or agreement that requires her either to rent the property or give any other person any control over the occupancy of the property. Despite these representations, the Perron property was not occupied or used by James as a secondary residence and was instead used as a rental investment property, renting the property to a family of 3. Now, this may seem picayune. This may seem trivial. But just remember what Letitia James got Trump on for his mortgage fraud. And I'm saying that is the standard of picayune that we must apply against Letitia James. By the standard you judges. Remember, all these parables throughout the New Testament is about us not holding others to a higher level than we hold ourselves. You often have a plank in your own eye, and you're pulling that grain of sand out of your opponent, and you're ignoring the plank in your own. Well, Letitia James had a plank in her eye of real estate fraud, and she went after Trump for real estate fraud. Though there were no victims, everyone who performed any business with his real estate agency wanted to continue doing business with him. Okay, there's no victim in his case, and she went after him. So it is right to go after her in this instance, in my opinion. Here's more on CNN coming back at her.
Do 2 wrongs make a right, Scott?
Well, the implication that I don't support the Constitution that you made notwithstanding.
I did not say that.
Excuse me, being an
He's
original.
just famous for being a constitutional originalist.
Here's what I think. If Democrats like Slotkin are going to come out today and whine about selective prosecutions over Tish James, her entire career is built on the selective prosecution of one man. Now, I also believe what Elliot said. There's a process here. Everybody gets their day in court. Obviously, a grand jury saw enough evidence to bring charges. We don't know what they are, but a grand jury looked at this and says, okay, there's something here. She gets to go to court just like Comey, just like anyone else. But to me, it's just not going to fly to boo-hoo over selective prosecutions on this particular person who promised in her campaigns, who went after him on things, as Jonah said, that had no business ever happening, if not but for the man's last name being Trump. So I'm not going to...
How is that not a two wrongs make a right argument?
That's Jonah Goldberg, an alleged Republican, neocon, used to be great, now a complete sellout because of his Trump derangement syndrome. He's doing this is a both sides. How does this not two wrongs make a right? I'll tell you how it's not. In this case, two wrongs. If you don't prosecute the second wrong by the standard that the first wrong was prosecuted, you have committed a pure evil. You have invited corruption into your system of government. You have invited if you do not demand that she be prosecuted, you, Jonah Goldberg, in saying, wait, this is a second wrong. This is a second. No, this is us saying that there is one standard. There's no two tiers of justice. We heard for years that no one is above the law. The law, as practiced by Letitia James, a high authority. She must be held by this authority, Jonah Goldberg. Not two wrongs make a right, but if you only prosecute, if you allow one of the wrongs and then do not allow the other thing to happen, which could, I'm not weighing in on if it's right or wrong to go after Letitia James. I'm only saying if you do not go after her, it is a wrong. So Jonah Goldberg becomes the one that is for two wrongs. And I'm saying to Jonah Goldberg, two wrongs don't make a right. What are the two wrongs? When Letitia James went after Trump, and if Trump does not go after Letitia James, it is a moral wrong because you've...
Okay, let me also just say this. Two wrongs. Now, Republicans can all day long say, and you might get a couple of Democrats to agree with it, that the charges, in fact, I've heard some Democrats, Dr. Turley, a law professor, saying that, they really don't have a case against Trump. So by prosecuting Trump for made-up charges, that's a wrong. Letitia James, she broke the law, okay? And I agree with Doug. To not prosecute that would be wrong. So they're doing the right thing by prosecuting someone who broke the law. Just like people coming in across the border unlawfully, breaking the law. Where do you draw the line? Where Democrats, it's okay if Democrats break the law. I guess the line is way up here. For Democrats, you can commit murder, and that's okay. You'll be out on the street within hours. But I don't think Republicans feel that way. When you break the law, you need to suffer the consequences and at least go to court.
Taking the blindfold off of justice.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying she gets her day in court.
That's right.
I'm saying a grand jury saw enough evidence to bring charges, and I'm saying she gets to go to court and tell her side of the story, and then we'll see what happens.
And that's especially important to hear what he said. It went before a grand jury. The Democrats always say it's an independent grand jury in Virginia. Independent grand jury. Now, if Jonah Goldberg says this is a political persecution, then he has to undermine the entire system of grand juries, of the secret grand jury that looked at the evidence, because a grand jury is allegedly neutral and not politicized. So are you going to impugn the character of the grand jury system? No, because they found enough on Letitia James to go for it. See how this works? This is Loctite. Democrats do not have a squirm in this, and their only squirm that they can do is say this is obviously political. And I'm saying this is way upstream from things being merely political. This is moral. It's actually moral to do, and it's immoral not to do it. Here's
to endure years of violent protests, riots, looted cities, and BLM arson? Or was it all allowed by design so the politically powerful could sip wine in gated communities while watching our country burn? This week, the answer finally became crystal clear. President Trump has officially unleashed federal power to end years of Antifa-fueled chaos, and even the federal courts are backing him up. Trump has delivered the law and order restoration Democrats have been dreading. The whole nation is watching these woke ultra-left anarchists run scared, and we're going to find out why he's just getting started. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, enjoying yet another wonderful, exuberant day in President Trump's golden age that you made possible back on November the 5th. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Portland, Oregon, a Democrat monopolized rat-infested wasteland, a third world hellhole. Sorry, that's an insult to third world. A city that spent over 100 nights in Antifa-initiated turmoil. A city that has finally met its match in President Trump. The game just took a dramatic turn. Remember that left-wing lunatic disguised as a federal judge who issued a temporary restraining order over the weekend, blocking President Trump from deploying the Oregon National Guard troops to Portland? Yeah, well, she was just told to shove it by her judicial colleagues. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals unanimously, yes, you heard that right, unanimously lifted this activist judge's restraining order on Trump's mobilization of Oregon National Guard troops. And so now the National Guard, together with federal agents, are descending en masse on this third world Democrat imploded city with one ruthless mission: restore law and order once and for all. No more catch and release, no more city officials handicapping law enforcement. The hammer of justice is dropping in its most dramatic fashion yet. And so now as we speak, these violent Antifa rioters are being slapped with 8-year federal felony charges for assaulting officers. For the first time in years, real accountability is arriving, with rioters being tossed in federal penitentiaries, not let out in hours to riot again. And the effect? Residents are taking to the streets to cheer the federal heroes for cleaning up neighborhoods and reclaiming the city. Portland's multiracial communities finally see peace return thanks to President Trump's unyielding approach, and they are thankful and joyful beyond words. The results are undeniable. Trump's crackdown has triggered a mass exodus of Antifa's ringleaders. Have you heard about this? They're actually fleeing the country after being designated as leaders of a domestic terrorist organization. Mark Bray, one of the group's financiers, is now hiding out in Spain. He's literally left the country. Other notorious Antifa architects have been tracked down in Sweden, fleeing prosecution as the FBI and ICE ramp up operations against domestic terrorist cells. Isn't it ironic? You know, for years, the legacy media insisted Antifa had no leaders. They had no hierarchy. They had no structure. They had no formal funding. And yet now we see those very non-existent leaders are leaving the country. Their so-called non-existent masterminds are proven real, and they're running scared, begging their followers to keep fighting, all the while they flee like cowards. Absolutely pathetic. But President Trump isn't stopping with the arrests. At the roundtable yesterday with frontline journalists and aides, Trump announced plans to officially designate Antifa as a foreign terrorist organization, a move now possible thanks to discoveries linking Antifa to networks in Europe and the Middle East.
Go ahead. Who are you with? Who are you with?
The Center Square. I had the honor of asking you originally if you would designate Antifa a terror organization. And I stand here before you today, and I'm echoing what Andy said over here. Are you going to work with your administration, as the Secretary of State's here, are you going to work with your administration to designate it a foreign terror organization?
You mean a terror?
Antifa? A foreign terror organization.
Well, has that been done? Pretty close, right? Would you like to see it done?
Yes, Mr. President.
You think it would help?
They have foreign
I'd be
links
glad
all
to
across
do it. I
Western
think it's
Europe.
the kind of thing I'd like to do. If you'd like to, does everybody agree?
Sure,
If
let's
you
do
agree,
it.
I agree. Let's get it done. Okay? Let's
Sounds
get
like
it done.
fun.
Marco, we'll take care of it.
Mr. President.
That's international, you mean?
Yes.
International.
Yes, Mr. President.
Sounds good to me.
Foreign terror organization.
Steve, are you okay with it?
Yes, it's true. There are extensive foreign ties, and I think that would be a very valid step to take.
Good, I think so too.
Yes.
Good, I think it's a good point.
He's so freaking amazing. I mean, that's one of the most common observations about Trump among those who've had a personal audience with him. We make suggestions, and he actually listens. And if he thinks it's a good idea, he turns to his people and he says, all right, let's make it happen. Do it. Make it so. He is the living embodiment of a man of action. And as you just heard, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, they both agreed foreign terror designation is the next step to crush these violent extremists at their source, which would mean that these supposedly non-existent leaders can run, but they can't hide. They will be tracked down, even in Europe as well.
Yes.
And
okay, he's doing a commercial here, so let's get past that.
To disrupt and dismantle felony charges against Antifa members. Joint executive president masterclass. It's going to be awesome. Now, this is the power of designating Antifa both a domestic and international terrorist organization. The president has unleashed the full arsenal of federal law enforcement to systematically dismantle these violent anarchists. Under the executive order and national security presidential memorandum, Trump has authorized a coordinated multi-agency assault against Antifa. It involves the FBI, it involves ICE, it involves the Treasury Department, it involves the IRS, it involves a National Joint Terrorism Task Force, all with unprecedented powers to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle Antifa operations nationwide and now increasingly around the world. Federal agents now have authorization to pursue 8-year felony charges against Antifa members for assaulting officers. They can deploy RICO racketeering prosecutions against entire networks. They can freeze assets and financial networks funding domestic terrorism. They can revoke tax-exempt status of organizations providing even indirect support. And they can conduct undercover operations to infiltrate and uproot terror cells. In fact, even the Treasury Department has been directed to trace illicit funding streams and coordinate with the IRS to ensure no tax-exempt entities finance political violence. All the while, the Justice Department can now prosecute conspiracy, money laundering, arson, and major fraud charges to the maximum extent of federal law. This is the full power of the federal government that's being unleashed against Antifa. Most significantly, Trump has established legal precedent for treating domestic terrorism with the same aggressive tactics used against organized crime and foreign terror groups, giving federal law enforcement the tools to target not just the street-level rioters, but the entire infrastructure of funders, recruiters, and organizational supporters behind Antifa's nationwide campaign of political violence. Federal agents have now repurposed ISIS resources to hunt down Antifa cells, with scenes of targeted arrests in Portland capturing the newfound confidence to completely dismantle this terrorist organization. I mean, gone is the era of demoralized law enforcement. Now U.S. citizens are out in the streets thanking ICE for bringing order back to their communities. And the message from Trump's America is simple. Law and order has returned, and anarchists and their enablers are being crushed as we speak.
Thank goodness.
This is just the beginning.
I hope
As you
so.
know, Trump has sent the National Guard to Memphis, to Chicago. It looks like it's going to be Boston next with all the out-of-control rioting that's broken out there of late. Everywhere we look, President Trump is restoring law and order. And red state governors are taking the cue from the president as well. They're beginning to crack down on their blue cities, which is frankly about damn time.
Absolutely.
There is no reason on earth that deep red states should have 1 square inch of their soil taken over by left-wing lunatics, most particularly in our cities. Remember, if we're going to reawaken American civilization, we're going to have to revive our cities, since civitas, the Latin word for city, is the heart of the word civilization. Trump knows this, and he knows crushing the far-left lunatic organizations that have taken over our cities is but the first step in their social and cultural renewal. We're not even a year into his presidency, and he's already changing every part of our nation for the better. And based on what he just announced at that roundtable meeting designating Antifa an international terrorist organization, Trump is just getting started.
All right, there you have it, folks. Great information. Great information. I really like Dr. Steve Turley's presentation. Okay, clicking on the Rumble link, it does take us to the video here I shared with you. Dr. Steve Turley's video. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's get back here to X22 report. This is one of his spotlight specials. Dr. Kroner, Tylenol was first. Big Pharma vaccines are being exposed. It's about the children. Okay, well, let's see what that's all about.
Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report Spotlight. Today we have a new guest, Dr. Shannon Kroner. Dr. Kroner has a passion for writing children's books that emphasize truth and freedom. She has a doctorate in clinical psychology, a master's in special education, and a bachelor's in English literature. Dr. Kroner has dedicated much of her career to assisting children with disabilities in a therapeutic capacity. She's the author of the award-winning, best-selling children's book, I'm Unvaccinated, and That's Okay, and her latest book, Let's Be Critical Thinkers, which I think is very important. I'll be putting all the links at the bottom of the video, and I am very happy and honored to have Dr. Kroner on the X22 Report Spotlight. Dr. Kroner, welcome to the Spotlight.
Thank you so much for having me on today.
Hey, thanks for being here. And I want to start off, I mean, you wrote these two incredible children's books, and I think they're very important today, especially with RFK and his entire team going, I don't want to say he's going after vaccines. I think he's just exposing what I think a lot of people have already known. And I think people now are starting to learn about the medicines, the vaccines, and what's been happening. But why did you decide to write I'm Unvaccinated and That's Okay and Let's Be Critical Thinkers? Because both of them seem to talk about vaccines, COVID, and, you know, the side effects that come with all these things.
Yeah, I actually have a long history of working with children with who are vaccine injured, children with special needs. I started back in 2001 working with kids with special needs as a behavior therapist, and then also what's called a floor time therapist. So that's kind of someone who really kind of teaches appropriate play therapy for kids who may, be on the autism spectrum. And so during that time in the early 2000s, part of my role was to, do an intake with new families. And so every time I would meet a new family, I would ask, how was your pregnancy? How was labor and delivery? Were there any complications? Has your child been meeting, what milestones has your child been meeting? And it was almost every single time that I would get the same story from completely different families, that their labor was fine, delivery was fine. The child was meeting milestones until a round of shots. And then once they got, sometimes it happened immediately that there was some kind of reaction, high fever, seizures, brain swelling. And then other times it was more of a mild reaction. And then over time they would do more vaccines and get more reactions. And so, but it was always the same story. It always went back to vaccines, was that my child was fine and then they weren't. And then they started to lose, speech or making eye contact, and, became really sensitive to sound, sensitive to light. And it was always the same story. And so that's really kind of how I first started to look into vaccines and think like, there's got to be some kind of connection here between vaccines and autism. But I, at that time in the early 2000s, I really kind of thought that it was more of like, I thought that it was more of the schedule because there are so many vaccines given at once. And, today a child receives up to close to like 70, it's like over 70 vaccines from the day of birth to the time they turn 18. And so at the time, I really thought it was, too many vaccines at once. And I did not realize that every single vaccine comes with risk. And so that kind of started to wake me up. But then in 2009, during the whole swine flu pandemic that we saw, which was definitely not as crazy as COVID, but it was still, on all of the news outlets and stuff. During that time, I was pregnant with my first child, and I was 12 weeks pregnant when my doctor had said to me, I really need to get the swine flu shot and the flu shot. And then I, declined getting the swine flu shot because I felt that I didn't know enough about it. I had already started researching vaccines, so I was somewhat aware about vaccine dangers. But again, I thought it was more of like combined. And so my doctor said, well, if I'm not going to do the swine flu shot, then to do the flu shot. And the one that they had was preservative free. So it was, a very clean vaccine, no toxins. It was safer. And that doctor was able to convince me to get the flu shot at 12 weeks pregnant. And then very soon after, I actually ended up in the ER profusely leaking amniotic fluid. Wow. And I actually almost lost the baby. I went to my OB and he had said that, there was still a very strong heartbeat, but I had lost 95% of my amniotic fluid. And this was still very early on in my pregnancy. And he had said, you really kind of, you should consider ending the pregnancy, which I could not. I did not want to be able to stop. I couldn't find it within myself to stop a heartbeat. So I went and got another opinion. The other opinion said, you've lost 95% of your amniotic fluid. There's really no chance of survival. That wasn't good enough for me. I'm a very stubborn woman. So I went for another opinion and another, trying to find someone that would just tell me something positive. I never got that. And so I decided to do my own research. And I figured if my body was able to make amniotic fluid once before, it can make it again. And as long as there's still a heartbeat, there's still a chance. And so I actually put myself on bed rest and I drank a lot of water to stay hydrated. Nothing dangerous, but enough to stay hydrated. And by week 20, my amniotic fluid was back to 100%, and I was able to carry full term. And today I have an amazing 15-year-old who is taller than I am and smart and funny and just a really great kid. But, that was a real wake-up call, is experiencing my own vaccine injury, which really kind of threw me into the whole, vaccine fight. I'm also in California, where we have the strictest vaccine mandate laws in the nation. Children in California cannot go to school at all. They can't go to private school or public school if they are missing just a single vaccine. We lost our religious exemptions and personal belief exemptions in 2015, and we lost our medical exemptions in 2019, along with Gavin Newsom threatening doctors that if they were to write a medical exemption, they could risk losing their license. So that's my vaccine story. That's kind of how where I am today. That's my background on vaccines and this fight. So that's why I wrote those books.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, that you were able to research and do the opposite of what the doctors were saying. Because again, I think when women are pregnant, the body goes into overdrive, and it does. I think your body does everything to protect the baby. And that was my question to you, was like, well, can you replace the amniotic fluid? And I guess you can. So,
yeah, I mean, my body made it to begin with. And as long as there's still a baby there with a heartbeat, then your body can make it again. And it's just a matter of really kind of being hydrated.
I mean, out in California, I mean, what you just said about the laws that they put into place, you know, for a government to force you into taking something and inject it into your body without, you know, any type of exemption is just absolutely unbelievable to me.
Yeah, we have zero exemptions in California for children. I know.
For the government to overrule a medical doctor. So a medical doctor would face losing their license if there was a medical reason why a person shouldn't have a given vaccine. The government, the California Democrat government, is going to overrule your own medical doctor that knows your medical history better than anyone. The government in California is going to overrule that because they're packed with corrupt Democrats. Thank you.
So many families who actually have left California just so that they could send their children to school. In California, the only option we have for school, if a child is missing just even one vaccine, is homeschool, which is great. I love homeschool, but you know, that for parents who are not able to homeschool, it's really, there's no options, and it's horrible.
Yeah, it really is. So in your book, Unvaccinated, and That's Okay, it's a story about Nicholas Novaks, and his sister has autism. So it looks like the sister got the vaccines.
Yeah. Yeah. The story is, and it's the story I've heard from so many families. And actually I received, after that book came out a few years ago, I have received so many emails and messages. And even if you look at all the comments on Amazon, people just say, this is my story. The story is about a little boy, follows Nicholas Novaks, whose older sibling is vaccine injured because the parents did what they felt they were supposed to do. And she ended up vaccine injured with autism. And I explained the connection there for, you know, all the people who say that vaccines still don't cause autism. That's really it. You know, the fact is that vaccines, the day you don't have vaccines and then the next day you have autism. It doesn't work like that. Autism is diagnosed over a period of time, and it's also diagnosed by different behaviors. And so what vaccines can do is they can cause seizures and they can cause brain swelling, which ultimately can cause brain damage, which then could eventually lead to an autism diagnosis, because, you know, they're different, like they're losing the ability to talk, or they are becoming sensitive to their surroundings. And so, so vaccines may not the next day cause autism, but eventually there's this breakdown in abilities that could eventually cause a autism diagnosis. And so I explain that in my first book. And so because of what happened to his older sibling, his parents choose not to vaccinate him. And so it's told from his perspective of what it's like being an unvaccinated child in today's world, with so many pressures and, you know, people judging him, and the reasons why his parents chose not to vaccinate him being that there's zero liability. You cannot sue you can't sue the pharmaceutical companies. And you can't sue your doctor if there's an injury. And he talks about how the vaccine schedule and vaccines, they are made for like one size fits all, when in fact, kids are not one size fits all. Adults, nobody is one size fits all when it comes to medication.
Right.
And so, and he explains that. And then he also talks, and it's a very child friendly, it's a children's book. So it's made for really anybody to understand.
Okay, when she talks about one size fits all, no, medicine's not one size fits all. I mean, there's some people that can't take aspirin. I take aspirin; it does fine for like headaches or whatever, or some slight pain relief. But not even food is one size fits all. People are allergic to peanuts. People are gluten intolerant. People are allergic to, my wife's allergic to celery. Okay? So, I wonder if when they do whatever testing that they do with these vaccines, if they take all this into account. Okay, how's this going to affect someone that's allergic to peanuts? How's this going to affect someone that's gluten intolerant? Okay, how's this going to affect someone that has dairy intolerance? Not diarrhea, milk, dairy intolerant. But I don't think they take all this. It's, let's just throw it out there, make our money. We're not going to get hurt by it.
And he talks about the different ingredients that are concerning, such as formaldehyde and aluminum and, all the other kind of different junk that's in vaccines that can be considered toxic.
And it's very interesting that, since your books came out, RFK and Trump, the entire team, they're talking about Tylenol. And I think it's very interesting that they started off, they didn't go right to vaccines like, oh, you know what, stop taking the vaccines. They started with Tylenol. Why do you think they started there?
Well, so, Tylenol has kind of been on my radar for many years because the fact is that when someone takes, so our bodies have what's called glutathione. It's a master, it helps to detox. Mm-hmm. It's what helps our bodies detox from toxins. And everybody has glutathione in their cells and we need it. And so what happens is when someone takes Tylenol then depletes glutathione. And so you really don't want to give Tylenol to, a woman who's pregnant, because it can actually, acetaminophen has been found in the cord blood. And then if you're giving Tylenol to a child who's being vaccinated, and a lot of parents or a lot of doctors suggest to parents that they should either give Tylenol prior to vaccines or immediately after to prevent fever. Well, what's happening is when you introduce Tylenol close to vaccines, then your body then is getting depleted of glutathione, and the child is not able to actually detox from the toxins that are necessary to be detoxed. It's actually lowering the ability to do that, which can then, cause, the fact is that, there's aluminum in vaccines. And if you're not able to detox aluminum from your body, then it can cross the blood-brain barrier, stay in the brain, cause a whole host of other problems. And so really Tylenol, it's not the only cause of autism, but there is this link between giving Tylenol and there's so many studies on this. The studies go back all the way to I think it's 2008 is one of the earliest studies on Tylenol and autism and ADHD. And so, it just causes the body not to be able to detox in the way that it really should be able to.
So do you think it's the aluminum that's causing the autism? You know what's interesting? Headlines everywhere talk about Ozempic and similar miracle weight
commercial here. I want to get past this.
Autism. It's definitely an
or just click the link in the description. Autism, or do you think it's a lot more than that?
I think there's a whole host of different things that are causing, autism. It's definitely an environmental thing, and it could be there's so many different things, and there's so many. Not only that, but there's carcinogens in our vaccines. That's why I think there's such a high incidence of childhood cancers right now. There's so many things that are toxic in vaccines. Polysorbate, formaldehyde is a carcinogen. Aluminum. I know that Secretary Kennedy has done a lot of work to get mercury out of vaccines, which is great. And and I agree, with separating them. The fact is that every single vaccine comes with risk, and really it's kind of like you got to weigh your risks. And so like, if you're going to get your children vaccinated, I do believe it's very important to really space them out, like President Trump has suggested. I know that he just took the chickenpox, which is the varicella vaccine, out of the MMR vaccine. So we used to have an MMR vaccine alone, and then several years ago they added chickenpox to it, so it was MMRV, and they just now separated that once again so that parents can then do one round of MMR and then come back later, or not at all, for chickenpox vaccine.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there, folks. And I'm like 18 minutes into this 36-minute video, so I'm like halfway through it, and they've got a lot more great information here. Let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this does come from X22 Report. I'm subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. I want to share a message here from crypto.com. It's great information for savings in the future. Let's take a listen.
Let's be clear, cryptocurrency is no longer emerging, it's here. And this latest move cements that reality in the biggest way yet. Trump Media Group just inked a massive $6.4 billion deal with Crypto.com, the world's top crypto platform.
They're teaming up to scoop up $6.4 billion in CRO, the powerhouse token that fuels fast, low-fee DeFi, staking rewards, and real-world perks like cashback on your spends to launch America's first CRO treasury. When it's done, this new company will be the biggest CRO holder out there.
Want in on the action? Head to Crypto.com today and grab some CRO. Let's make crypto great again.
All right, great information, I think. Let's slide down here. I've copied the live chats from Debbie BS and Foxy Grandma and 0906er into a comment. Let me go ahead and finalize that. There we go. That's how easy it is to put a comment in, folks. Just write something in this blank area here and then click that green button, and it, poof, just happens. Now, these videos that I've shared with you are videos that come directly from the producer, okay? I've got the links to the videos in the description box and the links to the producer's channel. If you'd like to go to Doug in Exile, for example, or Adogg and see what other information they have, the links are right here, shortcuts to their channels. Also, these videos that I shared with you are videos that I've posted on Mertech.com. All these videos that you've seen, like Adogg, Dr. Steve Turley, Doug in Exile, here's Dr. Steve Turley, and X22 Report. These are videos that I have here posted on Mertech.com, where I have actually over 55 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. Now, I don't have time to share all this information with you, but I do have my daily news wrap-up coming up here about 9:30. So go ahead and take a break, grab a cup of coffee and a donut, grab a sandwich and a soft drink or a beer, and meet me back here at 9:30. I've got over 70 videos in my playlist already. I'm going to go back and update that, set up my live stream through Rumble Studio, and we'll get this started about 9:30. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for being here with me. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.